really being called to do something so vastly different than we've ever seen before in our civilization. Ever since money came on the path, and before money, it was some other way that we told ourselves we needed to earn our living and earn our keep. And how do we just take those leaps to just remember, and not just remember, but live as if this universe is vastly abundant, that we get to thrive. Hi there, and welcome to the Grail Leaders Podcast. I'm Holly McCann. I'm here with Julia McHugh, and we really wanted to hop on and talk about money and just riff about it. Our experiences with money, our experiences breaking free from money, our experiences of having lots of money and not enough money, and the pattern that we're seeing in these pioneering leaders out there who are breaking free from the mindset that says we have to take jobs that we don't love, work really hard to earn our living, to survive, and really following our true nature and what's calling us forward, and then what we experience along the way and what's there for us. So we're really happy that you're here. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Thank you for joining us. And Holly, thank you as well. I'm very excited. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I'm really excited. We've been talking about doing this for ages. So we finally got fired up enough that we said, let's just jump on and do this. So here we go.
Oh yeah, I'm excited because it's so relevant. And I want to take you back to probably the most standout time where I felt this issue really had arisen in me. And yeah, really it's about people that don't necessarily relate to or connect with the current system of extraction. We know that we're here to co create a whole new way of being. So, how do we thrive in this current world and do what we're here to do? And it was this incredible moment about 3.5, nearly 4 years ago, I think, on a beach in Australia on the Sunshine Coast, exactly where I am right now. And Holly was visiting me, and we were gallivanting around the east coast of Australia, having a wonderful time. But this morning, I feel like the weight of the world kind of got to me. And I remember it was like this really gloomy, horrible day. And we wanted to go to the beach, but the wind was so strong. We were walking up the beach. I think it was Sunrise Beach. And the sand was like stinging our legs. Hair was flying everywhere. And it's like, it just matched how I was feeling, this horrible weather. And I kind of like felt myself getting into that really compressed version of myself where I was just going to the darkest dark. And I was just in this moment of feeling like, wow, even though I know what I've done in my life is really incredible, I know what I'm here to do is to have a really powerful impact. And I believe in what I'm doing. But on paper, like how my life is, I felt like such a failure. I, I just remember it so vividly. I had no money in my account, or very little, that I could access. I had no like real way of making a good income. I had an online business in visibility training. And because of that particular business, I felt a little bit out of integrity because I'm trying to teach people, hey, this is how you get visible and people come and buy your services. And I was failing miserably at that. I had released a course that nobody was signing up to. I had nowhere to live. I was house sitting at the time. I had no car, no way of getting around. In fact, the way that I was getting around with you, Holly, was in an old bomb. Yeah, I don't know if that's a common term, but in Australia, that's a pretty old car. Kind of makes the sound of a bomb. And I just felt like, wow, I failed. Like I have absolutely failed this system. So I'm walking alongside Holly. I'm in tears and I'm pouring my heart out. And I basically just said to her, like, I feel like an absolute loser. Like there's no other way to say it. I just feel like I've totally failed in life and I can't see it getting any better. And I'm just, yeah, I really want to give you that picture of where I was feeling because I feel like so many of us that are on this path have had these moments where we've really questioned ourselves. And it may not have been about this particular situation like mine was, but I'm sure you can get the drift of like, yeah, I really have had those moments. And yeah, Holly, I know it was like 3.5, 4 years ago now, but if you could just share the essence of what you reflected back to me.
Yeah, I remember that day really vividly in that conversation. You painted a beautiful picture. It was this gray, stormy, yeah, dreary, dismal kind of weather day, and we were getting very windblown and, yeah, pelted with the sand, and I think you had to, like, kind of raise your voice so I could hear you over the wind, but I remember that feeling in my gut when I heard you say that about, "I feel like a failure, I feel like a loser," and I know that feeling so well, but it hurt my heart because I could feel that with all these amazing people that are venturing out and doing these incredible things to heal the planet, heal people, make a difference in the world, and we're all not all, but many, many people that I know have been experiencing this, and so I just sort of stopped and just said, "Julia, I want you to hear this. Like, in my eyes, you are in no way a loser. You're not a failure. You are a superhero." And I just remember your face like, "What? Like, how could I possibly be a superhero?" And I was like, "You have left this like money matrix being guided by I have to make a living even though you were, doing what you hated. So if you didn't like it, you stopped doing it and you refused to do something to just get a job to get a job just for money's sake, just for the sake of, having a bunch of savings in your bank account. You were following the flow of what was guiding you forward. What was happening in your world was, you had unplugged from that sales job that you had. It wasn't aligned. You were really getting out there and starting to share your genius with people. And while it was rough going, and like you said, like there was no money in the bank account and people weren't signing up, like I also see great purpose in that. And that's what I was sharing with you is that there's a very good reason why those of us that are in this space of sort of paving new trails for this new paradigm of earth that's emerging is like we're unplugging from that hold that money has had over us. And it's a lot of layers of unpeeling that. But when you start to like pull out of that system, everything shifts. Your whole orientation shifts, your whole way of bringing in revenue shifts. And there's so much that I can share, but just briefly in that conversation, I was wanting you to see that you were doing something following your heart that is so brave, that very few people even dare to dream of doing, much less actually doing. And so I just see you and others that I know that have been in this space time and time again as the most courageous beings out there because we're saying no to what's not aligned for us, even though society has tried to tell us that that means death. If we're not going to earn our living, they just think about that, earn a living. That's insane, the language that we use when we talk about our financial net worth. I mean, let's really shift the language of how we have been indoctrinated to see money and our ability to earn money equated to our survival or our worth or our value. Yeah, and I'll just pause there because I'm sure there's so much more we can talk about, but I want to sort of toss that back to you and see if I left anything out from that day. I just remember vividly that superhero comment just really shifting something in you.
You possibly nailed it because I'm actually teary. I'm like right back. Yes. Yeah, it was quite a shock to my system to for someone to just look back at me in that moment and be like, I think you even said the words like I take a bow to you. Like I really respect you and what you're doing. And the truth tears that I'm feeling right now was that it meant so much to me at that time and completely changed my trajectory going forward. But it was also because I knew that what you were saying was so relevant to many people already, like at that time, and so many more today because the way the world has gone in the last few years and the massive change to work and the world shutting down for a while and lots of people taking a step back, this is the time that I predicted, and I believe that you did as well, where at some point what we are going through or what you have been through, what I was going through that day on the beach, so many more people, like waves of millions of people, were going to really question themselves. where they just cannot keep doing what is not aligned with them, what is out of integrity. Before, I don't know, there was this grace period where I guess we could put up with it a little bit, but the more that our world is changing, the more that we're changing from the inside out, it's actually just not okay to do things that aren't aligned with us anymore. And for so many people, the first thing that's going to go is how they participate in the system, especially when they're in a job or a career and they know that they have a deeper calling, that they're here to do something that really is of service to humankind, to our whole human family, to this world. And spending 8 to 10 hours a day with their awareness in some other system that's usually based on a model of that extractive, scarcity, fear driven system that isn't aligned with the future that we all know that's thriving, that's abundant. It's like, well, how long can I participate in this? Like, people are actually running out of time, and more I'm seeing how many more people are feeling this call to move beyond that. And that's why I feel I am just so excited to share about this topic today and really dive into it. But I just want to share what shifted in me in that moment. So, yes, my whole system recalibrated because I was brought back to the truth of what I'm really doing. And at the same time, I could see such power in going through so much pain, so much of my own lack, because I was I was doing a few things that I feel so many of us do in that system. Is I was letting money have power over me. How much money I have, was the thing that was going to determine my life, what I can and what I can't do. And I was in a fear state around money, that I had to keep making it, that I had to earn my keep, which I am glad you said is crazy, because it is where these incredible beings, these infinite beings born into these bodies in a universe and a beautiful planet that is absolutely thriving and abundant of so many things, of energy, of resources, of love, of care, of nurturing support. And from the moment we arrive, where it's like we're presented with this, oh no, that's not the truth. You need to pay your way, you need to earn your living. And it just doesn't compute in my system. There's something so inherently wrong with that. And that's what I've felt my whole life. So you picked up on a theme that has been playing out my whole life. And my body recalibrated in that moment where I really stepped into, no, I know what I'm doing is my truth. I have to keep doing it. And to detox from this system will cause pain. It will cause upset. I will go through fear of my own survival, because I'm not meant to survive. I'm meant to thrive. I have to let go of all these different things. But something shifted then and there. And I remember we got back to where we were staying, this gorgeous little place. And I opened up my phone that I'd left behind, and all of these course purchases just came through like that. They just, I mean, it had been open for weeks and not like boo, no, nothing. And then suddenly all these people had registered for that course. And I got a phone call from an old friend that I wanted to reconnect with. And then I got another phone call, which actually secured my house sit in that same area, which was 6 months later or something, 5 or 6 months later, that was going to occur, which changed my life again, where I met my now fiance, where I now live. Like, everything from that moment of that recalibration started to shift, and more abundance, more love, more joy came into my life. But it just goes to show like the power of when we go from that compressed state to where we really own our true nature and we expand into the truth of who we are, our whole reality then shifts around us. And it's not like in that moment, all my money issues were resolved. Oh no, I had plenty more iterations and journeys to take that have all been profound in their own way. But the impact of knowing the truth of who I was and what I was here to do really shifted things for me. So, yeah, I'll pause there, and I'm sure you have lots to share.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Julia. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, yeah, what a momentous day. I forgot to say that when you were saying that about the bomb, I was cracking up because I remember being like, "Hang on, I you picked me up from the airport and it was like La Bamba." Like it was I said, "I thought you were gonna rent a car." And you said, "I did." And I'm thinking, "How would any rental car agency rent this?" And you said it was from like Rent a Heap or something like that.
Rent a bomb.
Rent a
Actually called
bomb,
Rent a
okay.
bomb.
Literally La Bamba. Yeah, so that was hilarious and such a perfect, like, statement for where you were at the time and where we've all been, right? We think we can't afford anything more than that, and we limit ourselves, and that's the thing that I wanna say is that, we can talk in more depth about this, but I wanna be clear that we are not anti-money, money is evil, all that sort of thing, and, we've sort of matured past that sort of naive expression of the law of attraction. Just change your mindset and it'll all change around you. I think many of us have gone through that phase and been quite frustrated at times. There is some truth to it, which is what draws us in, but it's not the whole story. The whole story seems to be the energy that we are giving to money, the way we are externalizing our own power and letting money have this power over us and be the authority in our lives. And it's so the reverse of, money is a beautiful thing. I'm so grateful for money. I have a deep appreciation for the role that money has played in our civilization, the way that we're able to look as an outpicturing of where our attention is going, and how we feel about ourselves reflected in how we feel about our relationship with money. And that's this beautiful barometer of our own abundance internally that gets outpictured through money. And it's not just that. It's not like, oh, just become more abundant in your being and then money will be flowing in like a river. I really believe that there's a vast difference, in holding this mindset of, we're stepping out of a conditional reality. If you do this, you get that. I mean, that's how machines work. Push this button, get that output, right? And we're realizing that's not how nature works. It's not a machine, it's not mechanistic. So there's not a linear, logical, like one answer that's so reductionist. It's not like, oh, if I just do this, then my whole life will change. Then I'll be wealthy. Then money will come in. Then I'll be safe, whatever those things are. But when we can really see the power that we're giving to something outside of ourselves and buying into that notion that we have to work really hard or be really good at something to survive. And we've so equated having money in the bank or at our disposal with survival. And that has done a number on us. I think this whole survival of the fittest is how nature works has really done us such a disservice because nature is absolutely compassionate, caring, loving, sharing. Nature works in a sharing economy, and we've been like, oh, we need to conquer nature. Nature just wants to kill us. So I need to somehow find a way to survive. And we've been told that money is the way to do that. And when we look around our civilization for eons, it's caused so much destruction and extraction. And so we're really maturing out of that. So I just want to underscore that it's not money that's bad. It's the attention and the energy that we've given to it. So I guess I just wanted to share kind of a brief, I really think that I've come in to really understand money in so many different ways and abundance in so many different ways. And I look back over the trajectory of my life and connecting so many dots and being like, yeah, money is a central theme in my life. And I'll just quickly give a little overview of that. When I was a young child, my family didn't have very much money. We were very much like a sort of like lower middle class, maybe upper lower class at times, when things were going well. And there were times that things weren't going so well. My mom loves to tell the story. I was the firstborn child, and she used to tell us that when I was little, they actually lived in a converted chicken coop. That was the only thing they could afford to rent. And they would go out, she and my dad, in the evenings and put me in a stroller and collect bottles and cans to turn them in for redemption value so that they could, put food on the table. And I'm like, okay, so that's the energy around money that I was born into, that I was conceived in, is like complete scarcity, complete lack, kind of a poverty level mentality. And they worked hard to like get to that upper lower class or lower middle class kind of level at times, but I just constantly knew there was stress around money and always felt that like there's not enough. There was even a moment, sort of the depth of that pit in my childhood, when, for a variety of circumstances that I won't go into right now, we ended up basically homeless. We were, my three sisters and I and my parents were living out of two cars in a truck stop in Tennessee in the winter in December. And I remember just freezing in the middle of the night and shivering and hungry. And I was like, never, ever again am I going to be in this situation. And I think I was 11 or maybe 12 at that point, and something just snapped in me. I got angry and I said, I am never, ever going to be like this again. So, almost from that point on, it was my mission to figure out how to make a bunch of money. I, got really good grades in school because I wanted to get to a really good college so I could get a really good job. I mean, the whole linear story of if you do this, then you'll get that. I was really buying into because I thought that was a way I could change my experience for myself and my family that I was going to have someday. So I went to college, went to law school, became a lawyer, made a bunch of money, worked really, really hard. But yeah, definitely, we were in a two income family. My ex husband was an attorney as well. We made really good money. At one point, I think I was making $250,000 in salary and benefits and all the things. And, we had this beautiful custom built home, really nice cars, best daycares, all the things. And I was never not stressed about money. We were always sort of dog paddling to keep our head above water. And, as soon as we'd make more money, we'd up our expenditure. So it was always just above the surface. And if anything slipped, we would start to dip below the surface and start to drown, right? And I just remember like how insanely hard I was working, and just a lot of stress all the time. I ended up leaving the law after my 12 years in corporate, where I was the general counsel of a healthcare corporation. I ended up starting stationery boutiques, and then so owning my own business with two different locations, and all of that stress that came on to like, how are we gonna get into the black this year, and all the things that would keep everyone um, stressed about money. And so then I remember at one point during that time, I found the law of attraction and I thought, this is it. I'm going to figure out how to do this, how I'm going to make a bunch of money without killing myself. And at that time, I ended up reading like the 4 Hour Work Week and 1 Minute Millionaire and Think and Grow Rich, all the things to teach me how to change my mindset so that I could then make a bunch of money, but not kill myself, not deprive, myself of quality time with my family like I was doing, all of that. And I just got really into it. And there were really moments where I was like, oh my gosh, this works. There's something to this. And I really thought I'd found the secret. And soon, though, I quickly realized like, it was just frustration after frustration. Things would look like they would work out and then they wouldn't really work out. So finally, I left that behind and decided law of attraction was not something that worked. And then, I went to really realizing how much shame I had been carrying around since I was a child, around not having money and not, being good enough. And, and I, even when we were making all that money in the Bay Area of California and living, really upper middle class to upper class lives, I still felt like a fraud. I felt like I didn't belong in the gated country club community, that was not me. And if they only knew who I really was, they would kick me out. Right. And so then I had to deal with all that and peel off the layers of shame and, all of that, feeling like a fraud. And realizing that money still had a tremendous power over me. So, long and short, over lots of years, I unplugged from that whole system. I wound my businesses down. I moved across country to Boulder. I sold everything I owned, basically, um, and really just got to where I was comfortable without a bunch of money, without a job title, without my status as a coach, a consultant, a business owner, a lawyer, a corporate executive, whatever those were. I just shed those things, but layer by layer by layer, until at one point I said, you know what? I'm tired of thinking about how I'm going to make rent next month. So I tapped into my retirement account and went traveling all through Europe, went wherever I wanted to go, did whatever I wanted to do, and went exploring where my heart was calling me, and said, I'm going to pay myself out of my retirement. I think it was $5,000 a month for 6 months. And until then, I'm not going to think about how I'm going to make money. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to spend $5,000 a month and just go where I want to go. And had all my things in storage. And it was so freeing. But the thing is that I've realized is that all of those layers that I peeled back of control and the hold that money had on me around scarcity and lack and poverty and safety and security, and also my own ego, my pride of who am I if I'm not making money? Who am I if I'm not productive? All those things that I had to peel back, I still um, was realizing that I was making the least amount of money that I'd ever made in my life, and I felt the most abundant, the most free. And that was a really amazing, freeing, liberating feeling. And I could see through so many of the layers of indoctrination and programming that we were all living under. Knew that that had to change, and we were ready to change it. But yeah, we've noticed, Julie and I have had lots of conversations, haven't we, about all of the ways that we see the people that are really starting to shift their mindset, really saying, this doesn't work for me, this whole notion of like do everything right and you'll be rewarded. I mean, that just doesn't work anymore. That's failed at every turn, and these systems are breaking down. So the people that are opting for a new way to really go with what feels aligned for them and what really lights them up, and letting themselves out of this prison of needing to make a salary and an income and all that sort of thing, we're having a rough go of it, because while we may feel much more free, the money is not just rolling in. And so for years, I've been saying this is not a standard bell curve, like that you would imagine seeing, like, okay, well, 25% of the people are not making any money, 25% are making a ton, and the rest are making somewhere on average in the middle. This bell curve is so skewed toward making very little to no money. And so, one of the things that we were talking about the other day, Julia, was that this is almost at like a critical mass point of like an epidemic of, do we know anybody that's really doing really, really well if they're really in integrity and not chasing money and just doing what they love, doing their genius? And it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, I think that it's so obvious that we're here to do something different, that that excites me, because it's not just there's some of us fucking up and some of us really getting it right. It's by and large we're all going through the same thing. So that tells me that there's a huge power and there's a divine design through all of this, that yeah, that I can go on and on, and I will, but I want to pause for a second to sort of take a breath and let you comment before we kind of go on about what that pattern is, what those gifts might be, what might be really happening here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm just having this really beautiful moment where I'm in awe of how incredible the journey of money is. Like, it is such a powerful teacher for us all. What it can reflect back and what it shows back to us. It has just provided endless cycles of transformation in myself that I've witnessed in you, in so many other people. Yeah, and I really am feeling that so present right now in me, that there is a theme, a massive theme playing out, because yeah, I really believe what you're saying. I've noticed the same thing, where there are many people who have chosen 100%. I'm doing the path that's in integrity with myself, that is aligned with who I am. I'm following my true nature. I'm honoring my source essence in every moment. And then comes the struggle with money. And even if perhaps many of their basic needs are met, there's still the issue of funding for their initiatives and their projects and their visions. They're still trying to find money in some way. So I just feel like this is such a relevant point that we're at. Like you said, it is critical mass. We have reached this point where there is this huge question mark. Well, where are we going now? Because I believe money plays a role, and I believe so many other things beyond money are what we're welcoming in. And yeah, I just wanted to like really yeah, share about that. I guess that teacher side that money has been for me is that like I think that I've had, you know, obviously a different journey in money, but we've kind of come to this same point. Whereas I think maybe we're all coming to this critical mass point where there is this big question mark. But for me, I think I've just doubted money most of my life. I've seen it through a really negative lens, and I've really paid attention to the destruction that it has caused. And I've watched how so many decisions that are made on a local level and a national level and a global level have been around money and have always been in sacrifice of something else. And I've watched this destruction and I've felt this pain. And I think at a very young age, I was like, I don't want a part of this. And I went off traveling. I had no intention of chasing the dream. I just rejected it at every turn. Not buying a house, not getting married. I'm not signing a mortgage because that's just me losing from the word go. Like, I will find my own way. And the only thing that stopped that incredible journey was this belief that I had to grow up, I had to tick boxes, that I had to participate in society, that I had to earn my keep. And in my mid 20s, I just flipped and I was like, all on this path of making money. I want to retire at 40 or whatever. I want to make a heap of money now. And I started running like a sales business and all these different things. Like I just went to this other extreme. And then that all crashed and I went back. Like I basically, I was on a polar swinging like journey with money most of my life till I got to this point of reaching the best that I could career wise, where I was in the highest paying job that I could get, that meant that I could still clock off at a certain time of day that wouldn't create stress outside of my job, or at least too much. That was the most that I could do in that moment. And what I found was I earned enough money to save, to do all the things that I loved, but every bit of that money was being invested into the other version of me that wanted to emerge. I was investing in coaching, personal coaching, business coaching, every workshop that I could find, all the things that you would classify as unschooling, the things that we didn't get taught in school. I seeked all those things and I invested in them, and I wanted to improve my life, myself, my relationships. So I was constantly pouring all of this money that I could, but that I would normally save for traveling. I started pouring it into experiences and birthing this new version of myself. But at the same time, I also found that every bit of money that I was earning suddenly just needed to be used. Like I had serious health issues that I had to keep paying for, and I just felt like the more that I worked and the more that I made money, the more money that I needed to spend. And I don't know what it is, whether I'll uncover more of it from this conversation or later down the journey. But I feel like my relationship with money is that I'm a really magical manifester. At the moment that I need money, it's there. But when I try and hoard it and save it and do that model, that old model, I need to use it for something, and it just flies out of my field. And I'm like, wow, I feel this really like it might my big question mark when I've reached this critical mass is okay. I get that I'm this magical manifester that I can pull money in, but I also don't want to be living on the edge of my seat my whole life and just flying by. And at the same time, I see beautiful things happening in the world, and I want to be able to fund those initiatives that are popping up all around in my life. And right now my lifestyle is amazing and I am thriving, but there is sacrifice involved. And what my partner does to provide for that as well. Like there still is this sacrifice. So we're still like treading this world of like, what's in integrity, what's not. And I just feel like so many people are here. So yeah, I just wanted to catch you off on my journey. And yeah, before we head further into this conversation.
Yeah, I love that you shared that, Julia. And I do. I've said multiple times you are a magical manifester because it is like you'll get like a big, client session series comes in, and then all of a sudden the money's going out. And it can be like you can look the glass half full, like, why can't I keep the money that I'm making? Or you can say the glass is half full. Did I say half full before? I meant half empty. Or you could turn it around and the glass is half full, and that's exactly how manifesting works. That's how nature works. Like, nature doesn't provide a whole bunch of something just in case you might need it down the track. It provides something when it's needed, in its own season, in its own timing, for its own reason. And I think that we're really being called to see that and realize, one, we are not separate from nature. We are nature. We're part of this ecosystem that is incredibly brilliant in its design, and it is incredibly abundant. And we keep hearing these things, we keep reading these things, but it's another thing to let it like really seep into our bones, to the cellular layer where we're operating from that belief and not just sort of like, oh, that could be true. I could see that, maybe, kind of. It's a nice story. Or it's nice out there, but how does it apply to me? And we've seen that time and time again. I mean, certainly, I had that lesson when I went through my dark night of the soul period where I had closed down my stationary boutiques and I started doing coaching and consulting that I loved. And I had launched these online programs and they went gangbusters the first year. I think it was, I made over six figures with two launches that first year. And I thought, okay, now I figured out how to print money. This is it. I'm going to write my ticket. I'm just going to create online programs and they're going to sell like crazy and I won't have to work that hard. And then the next year, nothing worked. The sales would trickle in, and I just wasn't loving what I was doing. I was in a weird energy of, I was all about empowerment and you can do whatever you want to do. And yet, so many of my clients were coming to me saying, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, how are you not listening to me? And then I realized, oh, it's my marketing. My marketing is going out there saying, you're broken and I can fix you. So what do I think I'm going to attract when I'm like using a marketing scenario like that? So my experience was, the money just dried up. And I remember sort of the fear just sort of taking hold. And I had just gone through a divorce. I was totally on my own. And in the past, that hadn't been a problem, for me to make money. But now it seemed to be a problem. Like nothing I did. I went the whole route of working harder, working smarter, trying new things, just beating my head against a wall, and then finally had to just surrender and say like, okay, money is not coming in right now, what am I going to do about it other than just let it happen? And I think that's happening for so many people, is that we might get these little wins where we're like, yay, like we've figured it out, we're making money, and then all of a sudden some big expense comes up, the car needs a new engine or something happens, medical bills, whatever that is. And it's definitely a pattern. And I really think that there's so much intelligence behind that for us, that we are meant to really separate ourselves from that story that money and our ability to earn money is linked to our survival. And it's happening. We're all kind of dabbling with that, and I see so many beautiful, intentional communities coming together, or resource sharing co-ops and things like that. But what I also see is, yes, they might be able to make things stretch farther by sharing them, and not everybody has to own the same lawnmower. We can share one lawnmower amongst a lot of people, or maybe stop mowing our lawns. But all of that still shows up in a lot of intentional communities are living in like a standard of living that I don't really want to live in. I'm not a snob. I've proven to myself that I can live in, not very nice surroundings. I can live with a bunch of people. I don't choose to do that. I want to be in a space that I can come back to my own energy, that it can be sort of my essence, my way of decorating. The things that I like are a little bit upscale, but not over the top, things like that. And that's okay. Like, that's the thing, that the pendulum swings in sort of the spiritual community of like, oh, you need to, shun money and let go of all money or else you're materialistic. And that's just another pendulum swing. It's just another way of judging ourselves and punishing ourselves. So there's plenty for us all to be thriving at the level that we want to thrive. And I think we're having to teach ourselves that, because first, we need to really break that hold that money has had over us about, you have to produce, you have to produce, you have to produce in order to survive. And so many of us have done that. But then we start going around feeling like, well, now I'm just a dropout of society. Now I'm not a producing member of society, a contributing member, right? And so we kind of walk around with our heads hanging a bit because money is not flowing in. And so I think there's more layers to be seen that, one, like we said, does money just show up when we need it, like nature? That's an entirely plausible scenario in my mind. But I think there's more. I think there's something more for us to just keep living through these layers of letting go of ego, letting go of like, well, what will people think if I'm not making a bunch of money or have some fancy job title or a lot of responsibility or a lot of people are looking to me to make decisions and all those things. Like, I've certainly had to unwrap that from my being. And then we also get to that place, though, of can we trust and really believe that this universe is abundant? I was just listening to a few podcasts from Zach Bush, one of my absolute favorite humans on the planet. And every time I listen to a podcast by him, I'm instantly inspired. My cells start vibrating at a much higher frequency. I feel so much more alive and in alignment, and yes, this is what I'm here to do. I'm inspired, I'm motivated. So one of those the other day he was talking about, and he said something that I'm paraphrasing, but I've sort of written it down a few times for myself, and I'm repeating it to myself almost like a mantra of, if we could all just remember that we are infinite beings creating finite experiences in an infinite universe, then that would be the end of suffering. And I really believe that if we can really let ourselves metaphorically jump off that cliff and just assume that the net will appear. It's the hardest thing in the world to do because we might get our minds there, like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and just trust. But every cell in our body is screaming, no, we'll die. Are you kidding me? Because it's not just a mental concept, it has to work through all the layers. And so we have to like believe it at every level of our being. And that comes through direct experience. It comes through time and time again, being without money, freaking out about money, and then, oh, money shows up just before or just when we need something, right? And the more experiences we can have that show us that, then what you were saying, Julia, really sparked something for me where you were saying that, you don't want to live by the seat of your pants, basically, like just surviving on a thread, like, okay, I don't have anything until I need it, and then poof, it'll show up, and then I don't have anything again. But what if we just changed the script around that? And what if we said, like, wow, look at how magical I am at manifesting. Look at how abundant this universe is. And that will always be there for whatever we need. And not just need, but desire, from not an egoic layer of desire trying to fill a void, but desire because it's aligned with us. It's in resonance with us. This is how I choose to live. I want to be able to have really local, organic, whole foods. And right now, those tend to be more expensive. I want to have really quality, experiences. I want to be able to go where I want to go, things like that. And I want to have a car that I'm not having to worry about it breaking down on the side of the road or whatever that might be. We get to have those things, and we've called those essentials for thriving. And that's kind of a baseline of like, what level of resources and experiences and things that I have in my life make me feel like, yes, I am not just keeping my head above water, dog paddling, or hanging by a thread. And it's shifting from, I've got a bunch of money in the bank, so there's my nest egg or my security if something goes wrong. We've really got to shift out of that because, like you said, nature doesn't hoard. That doesn't work that way. It's just dead energy at that point, just sitting there. It needs to flow. It needs to move. That's how nature and the life force energy flows. And so that is where vitality comes from, is in that flow. So how do we keep it flowing? How do we flow it out to farmers that we love and honor? How do we flow it out to artisans that make amazing handcrafted goods? Things like that. And then how do we allow ourselves to receive for our genius and get over the programs of like, oh, I can't receive money for my genius. That would be tainting it, commercializing it, monetizing it, whatever that might be. And so the more we can be in that space of like, okay, rather than just getting by on like a thin dime that we're like, I'm going to choose to like invest in this thing or buy this thing or rent this place or lease this car and trust that every month the money is just going to show up right when I need it. Rather than like, well, I'm just going to rent a La Bamba and then that little bit of money will show up. I mean, money is energy and it takes probably the same amount of energy to bring in $20 as it does to bring in $2,000. It's really just how are we lined up with it? And I know it's starting to sound a little bit like just mindset, law of attraction kind of thing, but I think we're really being called to do something so vastly different than we've ever seen before in our civilization. Since money came on the path, and before money, it was some other way that we told ourselves we needed to earn our living and earn our keep. And how do we just take those leaps to just remember, and not just remember, but live as if this universe is vastly abundant, that we get to thrive, and that when we're in that space, we're a partner as a place in nature. We're playing our role as stewards, helping nature, interacting in relationship with nature, giving to the planet, giving to people, contributing through our genius. The things that truly light us up are contributions. We're not selfish beings. We're not really truly wired for lack or scarcity. That's just a program that's been fed to us for so long that we've taken it on. So the more we can play in that space of our genius, the more we can free ourselves up. I really believe that's where we'll step into more and more thriving and mutual thriving, where we're coming together to not just save money because we're sharing resources, but to remind ourselves and remind each other, you are incredible, you are amazing. And look, a money is just coming in, or whatever resources it might be. It may not be money all the time, it may not be money for long, who knows? But something will come in to just show us the flow of nature that just keeps coming in this toroidal field. We're contributing and we're receiving, and we're contributing and we're receiving, but it's not this bargain with the universe, like, okay, if I do this, then I need to get that, right? It's really just letting go and trusting. So yeah, I have more to say, but I will be quiet for a minute and see how you're going.
That was fantastic. Oh, so much was sparking in me. Firstly, like the, I was just getting like such a great image of how humorous it's been that we've been searching for money in every place. Like I feel like all the different experiences that we've all been through, every time we've found the secret to money, or like really, it's not really the secret for money for me. It's the secret to doing what I love and not having to worry about making it. It's like it's more about how I spend my time. That's what I value more. And how we've been looking in all these different places and just not looking at the exact thing that it's right there, that it is infinite. It's like everything that we need is around us, everything. And it's like we were looking in all different directions, getting closer. Absolutely, seeing new versions of how we can get closer to that truth. But the truth has always been right here. And that's what I know is really my body. I think that's what I believed I have felt my whole life and haven't been able to articulate it. And yeah, another thing that really sparked in me, which I love, was that whole like process of sitting on the edge and like, oh, what's going to happen? And then suddenly I have a need for money and money arrives, like just living in that kind of really kind of risky lifestyle. I think the difference between that and not wanting to feel that way all the time, and and like what you were saying, Holly, like really experiencing the infinite nature of life and knowing that it will come in, is really embodiment. It really is for me, because if I'm like living on the edge and every few months or so that experience happens, I have all this money, then suddenly I need all these things to spend it on, and then I don't know when it's coming next, and it arrives just in time. That's like a pretty scary feeling. But as we fast forward time and we keep trusting and we keep allowing that infinite nature of life to come through us, and that's happening every second of every moment of every day, it's proven, it's in our bodies, we have embodied it, we're actually living it. There's no, does this work, is this theory right, or can I trust this? It's happening. And I feel like for me, the spaces between those moments are shortening. And it's becoming more and more frequent that I'm going through this process, and I'm believing it more and more in myself, and I'm seeing it reflected back to me. And it's just a really powerful experience, that. And yeah, I think like I love that Zach Bush interview as well, and some other things that I've been exposed to lately that I think have reawakened this whole conversation inside of me, and I'm feeling, wow, there's another level for me to expand into this, is just how much, um, like, I guess like the question that I had before, I'll just go back a little bit, is if we're living in this like amazing, abundant, like reality, why aren't we experiencing it? And that's the question that I was having. Like, why is it completely not our experience? And we know we have a matrix overlay, and we have all these programs and beliefs and things that are altering our experience of that reality. Absolutely. But as we dismantle those and we step out, why are we still cut off from this infinite supply? And maybe this is not for everybody. Maybe they're feeling it. But for me, I couldn't. And what I realized is I had absolutely no way of receiving it. I was completely repelling it. So, in my truth, I knew that life is infinite. And I was saying, no, it's not. And I was pushing back on it. And all these beautiful experiences that I've been through with money, of probably the last year or so, have been the most magical, where I have been receiving so many gifts in money, in things that I've wanted to spend money on anyway. I just keep receiving back for my genius because I keep putting my genius out into the world. I have no idea, like, about any way of monetizing it. I just want it to land. And it's not exactly like the full whole picture that I think I'm turning into. I think that that's just a step. Like, if you're someone that's been like, well, I can't give out my genius, I'm sick of sharing, I'm sick of not receiving, and you hold on to it. And it's such a beautiful thing to just let it all out into the world and see what comes back. And then these gifts and things have been coming back, and the gifts are getting bigger. And I'm actually in a wonderful process right now of learning, truly embodying receiving, what it really means to receive. It's one thing to be told, wow, you're amazing, you're intelligent, or look what you've done, like look what you're doing with your life, or look at the lives that you impact, and those sorts of things. I'm like, wow, that took many years for me to just receive the impact that I have on people. But when it's actually giant gifts, I'm like, whoa, I'm not comfortable with that. This is a whole new level. And these gifts have just been rolling in and teaching me to receive. But what's actually happening is that they're so incredible gifts that I would never want to say no to, that they're just like penetrating this wall that I've had up that's been repelling. And it's only just occurred to me in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks that I haven't been letting the infinite nature of life into my being. I'm still experiencing myself as a separate entity. Even though I felt deeply connected to nature, deeply connected to other people, to myself in relationship, there was this wall that I was still holding back. And what I've been noticing now is like these moments that I've been taking just to sit in my own space, especially when I'm in nature. It doesn't have to be, it can be anywhere, and I'm just experiencing the infinite nature of life coming into me instead of me sitting in this place, this incredible wonderland, as this separate entity. I'm allowing it into my system. And I love that, the experiences that I've had with money and receiving and gifts and genius expression have actually opened up this portal for me. It's like, well, for the first time now, I think I'm really feeling it. I'm starting to feel it. I have no idea how big it is. I'm at the very, very like early stages of this. I've just touched the precipice, but it's like what's underneath all that is like so much life is available to us. And I'm just wondering how many other people out there have been doing exactly what I've been doing, based on the way that you were brought into this world, the belief systems that you took on, the how things are done, the having to earn money, the everything that we've thought we've had to believe in order to survive has actually stopped us from receiving the infinite nature of life when it's been there all along. Yeah. So, and another thing I think it's really been helpful is just clearing out my body with a lot of deep fascia work and allowing areas in my body to open up to flow. So areas that were adhesed before and tight and stuck, and there was lack of blood flow, there was lack of oxygen and essential nutrients. Now my body's becoming more, I don't know, watery. And there seems to be flow of life force energy of everything that I need. And it's actually allowing to move through my bodies. So yeah, it's really multidimensional, this journey. It has been for me. And yeah, now I'm really starting to feel it. But like I said, it's at the very beginning, early days of this.
That's beautiful, Julia. Yeah, I've contemplated a lot that question of, well, if it is true that we live in an abundant universe, why are we not experiencing abundance? And, I mean, yes, it's going to sound like law of attraction, mindset stuff, but it really is our mindset and our story that we're telling ourselves, because I do fundamentally believe that our reality that we experience individually is created by the stories that we tell ourselves. And so, whether consciously or unconsciously, I'm telling myself a story that, yes, I can sort of consciously let in that the world is abundant. I'm unconsciously saying I'm in lack and I'm experiencing scarcity and I've got to get mine to be safe and all that sort of thing, secure my safety and my future and all of that so that I don't end up homeless on the street. And it's funny, one day I was thinking, well, I always like to play this game with my daughter. If she gets worried about something, I'll say, well, let's take it to, well, what if that happens? Okay, what if that happens? What if that happens? And just keep asking that series of what if questions until you get to the ultimate what if. And then how would you feel about that? And I was thinking about, like, I always sort of cliche go to, oh, I don't want to be homeless on the street. And I thought, well, you've kind of been homeless before. You survived. Like, I don't imagine that I would actually end up homeless. But the thing that I realized that I was most afraid of wasn't that I would end up on the street, because I know that would never happen. I have family, friends, all that sort of thing. But it was that I would be limited in my choice. I would have to settle for something that I didn't really want because I couldn't afford something that I did really want. And that was where I was like, oh, I don't want that. And so there's a lot of those. How do we check in what we're really resisting? And what am I like pushing against and trying to have that not happen? Can I just go to like accepting that that might happen, but then being clear on what I want to have happen, um, and what I choose to experience? And I know at this point, many of us are beyond that. Like, I just want a lot of things. We're way beyond that materialistic thing. We just want experiences and we want to live in a way and surroundings that nurture us and eat foods that nurture us and all that sort of thing. But it goes back to, I really believe that everything that happens is happening for a very good reason, not because there's some puppeteer in the sky that's like pulling our strings, but that we, at some other aspect, multidimensional aspect of our being, is calling in for us because of something we wanted to learn, something we wanted to experience, some program we wanted to see running that we could let go of because it's run its course. And so when I look at, okay, this is happening, can I not push against it? Can I not be like, yay, I don't have money coming in, and try to, convince myself, which isn't authentic, that it feels good, but can I just accept it, and say, all right, this is what's happening? And then can I just get curious and be like, why might this be happening? What is the gold that's in here for me? And then I was just playing with this the other day of like, okay. I actually quickly share, there was this parable that I was discussing with a friend of mine. And it goes something like, I'm totally paraphrasing, but that there was this man who lived his whole life with this dreaded skin disease. And he removed himself from society because he was mortified and petrified that he would be found out. And it was that didn't specify in the parable what the skin disease was, but it was something that if it was found out that he had it, he could be put in exile or jail. So I imagine it was something like leprosy or something like that. And so he removed himself and isolated himself, so that he wouldn't be found out. And then one day he went in secret to a healer, and the healer, um, completely healed the skin disease and all the causes behind it, body and soul. And short so he walked away without this skin disease. Shortly after that, these authorities come knocking on his door, and they're just sure they've heard that he has the skin disease. They're gonna like find out. They strip him naked against his will, and then they're quite disappointed because they find no trace of the disease, and he walks away free, and free on many levels, right? But the thing that I was saying with my friend that was troubling me about this story was the healer removed this disease and all of its causes, body and soul, for him. And I was like, that's not how healing works. That's not how nature works. I don't believe we can actually heal someone else. I think that the whole reason that a disease is there is because it's there to show us something. It's there for us to learn something, experience something, gain some level of compassion or greater love for ourselves and others through it. And so by taking that away, by healing that, you're actually depriving somebody of the gifts that's buried in that experience. And so when I go through and he said, "So are you saying, what are you saying about a healer?" And I said, "I really believe that we are all whole and we have absolute natural healing abilities, and a true healer will just be living in that, be embodying that, and be a role model for that, and hold up a mirror for others and say you are whole too. And if you're not experiencing wholeness right now, it's because there's something that you wanted to get out of this." And I know that's, you can't say that in too many circles because it wouldn't be one understood at the level that we hold it. But I really feel like when I look at, what's the equivalent of the skin disease in my world, money has been that. I would, walk around trying to cover up the fact that I didn't have money, especially in high school, like and middle school, like so traumatic. Um, just sure someone would find out that I didn't have any money in my family, and then they would not be my friend and things like that. So that was the shame of covering up and isolating myself, because then I wasn't free to be fully me. I never let anybody get really close enough to really get to know me. So the more I could let go of that, the more I could bring myself into the picture, let go of the shame and all that. So I was sitting there the other day and I was like really contemplating this, like, okay, have I gotten all the gifts that are there for me to receive out of having an experience of not having a bunch of money? I know I've gotten tremendous gifts over the last 10 years of unplugging myself from that whole reality that I was in, that was governed by lack and scarcity and earning away, and working really hard to, make your money and keep yourself safe. But is there more? Like, because money is not totally flowing in right now. So is there more? And there was a part of me that was like, one, I don't think so. I think I've milked this for about all there is to milk of it. And so, can I just drop that story? Can I just truly believe in this abundant universe and move forward? And two, if there is something, I'm likely not seeing it because it's not time yet. And so, why don't I just step into it? Because if there's an experience for me to be had around lack or scarcity and not having money, I'm going to have it whether I plan or, live, minimally or not. So why don't I just kind of go balls out and just be like, all right, what's what's there for me? Bring it on. And if there's not anything more for me, then great. Let's go. Let's experience the amazing abundance that this life has to live. And let me be this role model of embodying that incredible knowing that I am a part of nature and nature is absolutely abundant and sharing. And it's right now it's coming really home because, as you know, Julia, I removed the very last of my retirement account. I've been living kind of as a safety net in my retirement account. So being able to do whatever I wanted over the last several years, I was able to rely on a retirement account that I earned in my 30s when I was working my ass off. And it's paid me back really beautifully. But there's, the last of it is in my bank account now. And it's like, all right, that's about a runway of like few to maybe 6 months. And I watched myself go, and then there's no more. And I thought, that's crazy. the, that's not the only way that money comes into my world is through this retirement account. But I'd sort of gotten into this pattern over the last few years that told myself that is the only way. And so it was really like, can I drop that story? And so, as you know, Julia, I have all my things in storage, and I've been traveling internationally a lot over the last several years. And I'm really ready to sort of put down roots and get into my own place, set it up in the way that I love, having everything I love, lots of house plants, all that around me, in a community that I have access to nature and people that, are resonant and that sort of thing. And before I went traveling last year, I had given up my lease on my car because I didn't need it. I was going to be traveling forever. And I actually got paid quite a large check to turn in my lease early. And now I'm like, now I need a car. But I've watched myself say, oh, I shouldn't be spending money on rent or a car when I don't have, a steady income. And I'm really challenging that right now of, is it really time for me to take the leap and say, do I actually believe the universe is abundant? Which it's woven in through everything that we teach in Grail leadership, that toroidal field, the attractor field that happens when you get in alignment with your original intention and your genius, and that flow of nature that's regenerative and gives you everything that you need to fulfill that intention comes in. Am I actually living in integrity with that? And integrity is a big one for me. And I have to kind of say, kind of not. And so it feels like I'm about to sort of dare myself to take that next big leap and trust that it's time to actually embody that belief. And so let me find an apartment that feels really good. Let me find a car that feels really good and commit to those, knowing, even though I don't have a paycheck that I can show someone a W 2 form or something from, um, and knowing that I don't have like a huge wad in the bank, but it will come in. And just being like, and what's the worst that happens? The worst that happens is I end up in some lack space, and then I have a lesson to learn from that, or not a lesson like I need to be taught, but an experience to glean from that, to love myself more, to appreciate myself more, to learn more about the universe in which I live. So it's kind of a scary and thrilling time right now.
And inspiring. It feels all those things, but I feel really inspired uh, by everything that you just shared, because I truly believe that we have there's nothing else left to do except trust the infinite nature of life. Like for me, that's really what we've been working up to this baby steps for so long. And I keep getting proof. Yes, keep trusting. Yes, keep trusting. And I'm absolutely loving that you're taking the ultimate leap and truly embodying this. I think that's just so beautiful as a visionary of a body of work that speaks of this, and that you've lived this your whole life. Since the very beginning, you've been on this journey. And yeah, I just really love that you're doing it. I'm inspired by it, and I feel I'm doing a mini version myself in my own ways of that right now. I feel like that's what's around the corner for me too, and I have many big leaps to take as well to me that I can see. But I've taken so many, and so have you. And I've just loved over the years the incredible conversations that we have had around money, and what a powerful teacher it has been for us, and the iterations that we've been through. And yeah, it's just been such a magical journey. So it feels like a really good point to complete this conversation today. Is there anything else that you wanted to share in particular to people where they're at, or yeah,
No,
any comments?
other than to echo what you just said about, money is this beautiful gift that we have, that we can appreciate, and appreciate the role that it's played, appreciate myself for the power that I've given it, for how it motivated me to go out and have these amazing experiences of working in these jobs and living in these beautiful homes, and all the things that money enables, and the striving for money has us move through these experiences, right? And I think that I'm at a point now where the season and the reason for me giving my power away to an external authority of money is coming to an end. And so I just have, deep bow of appreciation for money. And let's see what we can do to play with money differently now. And you and I have gotten really excited about things we've talked about in Grail leadership, like the toroidal abundance model that we're talking about, and the way that we can sort of like watch this big sucking sound of money and resources coming out of a scarcity based, lack based reality into co-creation of regenerative initiatives and just pouring that money back in service of the planet and people and making this place really an experience of the true abundance that it is, and taking off these blinders that we have in the story that it's not that, so that our insides match our outsides, so that our understanding of this incredible plentiful universe is the daily reality that we're swimming in. So I'm super excited to see where this all unfolds and to start co-creating and exploring this with many more of you out there.
Me too. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.